and welcome to another edition of Top 10 Thursdays on Big Train TV. Today we'll be looking at another great game in Bethesda Big Train history, number 9 on our list. This game took place on July 30th, 2004 and pitted the Bethesda Big Train against the Herndon Braves in what ended up being Bethesda's final year in the Clark Griffith League. For this episode, we'll be again speaking to former Big Train General Manager Alex Thompson, Big Train Manager Sal Colangelo, former Big Train player Greg Lemon, and former Herndon Braves player Rhett. We've got another great episode on tap, so let's get started. The 2004 Bethesda Big Train season was one of fresh optimism, with the team stringing together a successful campaign from the beginning of the season, and as the last weeks of July rolled around, the team was determined to finally capture their first Clark Griffith League championship.
So that season was a lot of fun, high energy season, primarily because in my opinion, of the guys that made up that core. Greg Lemon, Andrew Smith, Johnny Noble.
2004, we had another really good team, just like the 05 squad, built largely on pitching and defense. We did have some pretty good offensive players. We had Brian Laninfa, Mike McHenry, who went on to play in the major leagues, who was a tremendous offensive player and catcher. But I remember we had a good scrappy bunch.
We've come so close every year,
Yep.
Finishing second behind the Senators or finishing behind somebody else. And we just felt this was our year. And we had a good season, and then we ran into the Herndon Braves.
On that blistering Friday night, the Big Train entered Shirley Povich Field, tied with the Herndon Braves for the league regular season standings lead. That year's Braves team was a strong group of players who were dangerous all year long.
The Herndon team, which we knew, I believe the Herndon team was second. They might have finished first, Rhett, in hitting in the league that year, either ahead of us or right behind us. But they could hit. Their pitching was adequate, but they could hit, and Rhett's right. So we had to do everything we could do to stop that. If we stopped their hitting, then we liked our chance. We were more of a finesse team. We ran with Johnny Noble, guys like Greg Lemon, and just hit the ball around.
They were just consistent from what I remember all season long. They were, they were a good team, sort of all around. I think they were probably better offensively than on the mound, from what I can remember.
Taking the mound for the Big Train in this game was starting pitcher Casey Barron, who had been a consistent arm for the squad throughout 2004.
Casey was just a crafty lefty that just had a phenomenal pickoff move, and we were getting down. He was our number 4 or 5 starter that summer, and we were getting down. We were getting pretty thin.
Casey Barron, University of Maryland, Terrapins. He was, not an overpowering lefty, kind of a little more on the finesse side, but really good off-speed stuff, could throw it at any time.
He was a starter for sure. I mean, he was, just sort of bulldog mentality on the mound, just a kind of a tough guy. Wasn't the biggest guy in the world, but he was a competitor.
Barron started strong for Bethesda, mowing down the first 7 hitters, but then ran into trouble in the top of the 3rd inning. A walk and a pair of singles put the Braves on top 1-0 in the 3rd. Then in the 4th inning, Braves hitter Braxton Good hit a solo homer to give Herndon a 2-0 edge. Surprising for a player not known for his power, but not shocking for someone with strong plate discipline.
So BT Good was, we call him BT, but yeah, Braxton, he went to Madison High School. He's a guy I mentioned. He was our second baseman. Again, he was just a guy who he was a tough out. He wasn't known for hitting home runs, but he got up there and, every time he got up to bat, we were like, okay, this guy's going to take probably 5 or 6 pitches into the account and grind it out.
Later in the inning, it was Rhett who doubled, and then a bases-loaded walk forced in Teller to give the Braves a 3-0 lead. The Big Train were down, but not out. They rallied immediately in the bottom of the 4th as a Mike McBride single scored Greg Lemon, a typical play for a key hitter like McBride.
Mike McBride went to FAU's the
fast as all get out, but he had the best arm I've ever seen in my life.
Yes, best.
From the outfield. He may have thrown 94 miles per hour off the mound if he got on the mound.
Yeah, 94, 97 on the bump. Amazing athlete, freak athlete. He could throw the ball from the right field fence at Povich and throw a line drive. at third, and you're done.
Just super fast. Also had just kind of a cannon for an arm. If memory serves, he went on to play in the San Francisco Giants organization. And he just was, he was definitely a prospect. We knew it when we had him. And he could just really fly on the base pass.
In the bottom of the fifth, it was Johnny Noble's turn to do damage for Bethesda, as the slick outfielder doubled to start the frame and came around to score. All of a sudden, the game was 3-2 Herndon, and Noble converting in a big spot was a theme all season long.
This is one of the best guys I've ever played with and been around for 2 summers. Johnny and I think, played in just about every game for the Big Train, and just an outstanding defensive center fielder, completely fearless, and could really, his range in the outfield was exceptional. As a top of the lineup hitter, he was always on base. He was the one thing that is in common from all these important games from the era when we played, like, Johnny's in the middle of it somewhere, either on defense, base running, offensively.
We had the same kind of sort of scrappy, slap hitting, line drive all fields type player at the plate, and sort of embodied the mentality. He was kind of like the outfield version of Greg Lemon and of Andrew Smith, really.
The game continued with the Braves clinging to a 1-run advantage into the 7th inning. A key player for allowing that to happen was the Big Train's Russell Durfee, who allowed just 1 hit and 3 walks with no runs over 3 2/3 innings in relief of Barron, an example of Durfee simply filling his role on the team.
It helped at that point. We wanted to break up their rhythm, break up their timing, try to change their eye level, try to do everything we could do to keep them off balance. And we just felt at that time we had a lefty. Let's bring in Durf.
Extremely hard throwing righty out of Duke. Was great in the mid to late innings for us. I just remember, my recollection is 2-pitch guy. I could be wrong about that, but my recollection was solid bullpen arm who, when he comes in, he's going to bring it for, 2 or 3 innings or whatever he needs to do to get it done.
I remember Durfee kind of being that Swiss Army knife type go-to type guy. Could be used in any sort of spots. He may have even had a couple of starts for the team, if I remember correctly, but was just sort of there ready to do whatever Sal asked him to do. Obviously came in here and held the Braves at bay, and that was a crucial spot.
With Durfee keeping the Herndon bats at bay, Bethesda got an opportunity to take the lead for the first time in the bottom of the 7th. With 1 out, Andrew Smith singled, stole second, moved up to third on an out, and then scampered home to score the game-tying run on a wild pitch. A hustle and heart instance of heroism was textbook for one of the most intense competitors in franchise history, like Smith.
To Andrew Smith, there's only one type of game, and that's one that you try to win. And he was just an absolutely tremendous competitor, extremely versatile on the defensive side of the ball, could play short, could play third, could have played first base or gone in the outfield if you needed to. Just a really, really heady player, very competitive, and a guy who always wanted to work on his game.
There were now 2 outs in the bottom of the 7th in a 3-3 game. Trey Cuevas doubled, and with Justin Martin ready to stand in, the Braves turned to their go-to arm to get a big out, Dustin Pease.
Pease was solid all year. I mean, the dude was like our guy. He's our lights-out guy.
Yeah, Pease was a guy, if you were left-handed, you had no chance of hitting.
0 shot.
Yeah, 0.
Yep.
I mean, he threw off that mound, and he stepped so far on the other side of that mound and came across at 86, 87 with good. You had no chance of hitting Pease at all.
I mean, for me as a left-handed hitter, if Dustin Pease was on the mound, that was one of those days that you wanted to get what we call the 5 o'clock flu. He was as tough as any pitcher I've faced in my life. When he was on the mound for them, it's a completely different game.
Luckily for the Big Train, Justin Martin was not left-handed, and the catcher smacked an opposite field double off the fence, scoring Cuevas and giving the Big Train a huge 4-3 edge. With a lead in place, Bethesda turned to David Hayes out of the bullpen to close down the last 2 innings. A situational decision from manager Derek Hakopian and his coaching staff.
I thought we just felt confident with him in that situation. We kind of rotated around. I believe Wyatt Stewart was the guy we normally went to late in the game. Wyatt was a great closer, got the job done. But yeah, we thought David Hayes would be the best route.
Hayes would need some help, though, in particular from Johnny Noble. With runners on first and second and only 1 out, Davis Stoneburner of Herndon steps to the plate, and I'll let Alex Thompson describe the rest.
Sort of late in the game, with the game on the line, he runs the ball down deep in center field and then guns the kid out from the Braves at third base, tagging up from second to third. And it was just, the throw was just on a line, maybe had 1 bounce, but was bounced right up to the glove for Andrew Smith, the third baseman, and it was just an easy one.
Noble's effort ended the frame, and the Big Train were held scoreless in the bottom of the 8th. In the top of the 9th, Hayes sat down Herndon in order, and Bethesda won the game, moving 1 game up in the standings with just 2 to go. In the end, the Big Train would win the regular season crown, and then would capture the league postseason championship, their first in what ended up being their final year in the Clark Griffith League. Looking back, the 2004 season proved to be pivotal for the history of the franchise.
So what I remember about the 04 season was it was a breakout season for the Big Train. It had put us on the map nationally, and we got over the hump.
That does it for this week's edition of Top 10 Thursdays, and thank you for tuning in. Next week, we'll be looking at game number 8 on our list, which took place in July of 2009. Until then, keep your eye out for more great content on Big Train TV, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any of it. Thanks for watching, and see you next week.
Hi, Big Train fans. So we're starting up the Bethesda Community Baseball Club again to run the Big Train baseball at Shirley Povich Field. We got to do a little fundraising. So we got a special treat for you. The first 100 people who send $100 to our Bethesda Community Baseball Club by going to www.bigtrain.org and pushing the donate button, get this cool mask. You know you want this mask. You don't want to go out this summer without the Big Train mask. So if you could go to www.bigtrain.org, hit the donate button, you can get the first 100 people get a mask who give $100 or more. You can buy a season pass for 2021, and you can even buy seat plaques at Povich Field, so your family can be part of Povich Field. So thank you from the Bethesda Community Baseball Club for any help you can give us to raise these startup funds to make sure we can bring the fun back to Povich Field in 2021. Thank you.
That's what's so great about the throwing of a baseball. God gave you that, and apparently God gave it to Walter like he gave it to few others. Some people are just built to play this game. Can't tell you how many great athletes I've met who tried to play baseball and it didn't work. I've seen really big, strong guys who can't throw out the garbage. And here, Walter Johnson, who'd never even played catch till he was 13, was a dominant pitcher and a major leaguer 6 years later. That's stunning.